Hello, everybody. Today, I would like to talk about the financial system, the quantum financial system, and certain elements of it, namely BRICS, SWIFT, and CBDCs, and how they will be developing in the future to move towards the Q financial system, which, if you've been watching my previous videos, you'll know that the Q financial system will be overseen by the military, and it will in the future require for us to have a Q consciousness ID code in order to access our accounts. So about 2.5 years ago, I was told that the CBDCs are not central bank digital currency, but they are centralized banking digital currency. And the difference between central bank digital currency and centralized banking digital currency, I'm hoping will be shown to you and explained in more detail today in this video. So 2.5 years ago, I started to explain to people that we're going to have a system called the Worldwide Military Peace Plan, where each region of the world, namely North, East, South, West, would sign into a set of protocols and regulations whereby they would then be able to join the Worldwide Military Peace Plan. And in doing so, this would enable them to join in with the cybersecurity of that plan in terms of overseeing their vital functions in their region, like banking, communications, voting, and things like that. And for us on the ground, what it would mean is that if everything is done at a centralized location in space, then we could talk from our decentralized, devolved platforms, from our phones, our laptops, etc., to that centralized system in space in order to have free speech, be able to do secure voting and secure banking without the need for tremendous amounts of layers of bureaucracy between us and that final system. So we're moving towards a decentralized, devolved system of government, finance, and communications. So I wanted to look at how this decentralized program under the Worldwide Military Peace Plan is going to affect the QFS and the Q financial system. The QFS, as you know from my previous videos, is like a practice platform, a practice template, or a sting operation to see what elements of the quantum financial system, the QFS, could work in order to move us towards this decentralized system for we the people. Those elements that are seen to work effectively in enabling a decentralized, devolved system to the people will then be moved across to the Q financial system, which is overseen by the military in terms of cybersecurity. When those items get to the Q financial system, we will then also have a Q consciousness ID, each of us, and we will be able to use our Q consciousness ID to access this Q financial system. Now, in the meantime, everything is being trialed and set up in the background. A few items are already under the military framework, and much of the other trialing is going on under the QFS. So today I wanted to look at different elements like the CBDCs, the SWIFT system, BRICS, and other new cross-border payment systems that are coming into effect, which are all going to allow for these devolved regions in the north, south, east, and west, for example, under the worldwide military peace plan, how it's going to allow them to run their financial operations in line with this ability to devolve governance to we the people. So today I was going to look at a few components of the QFS and the Q system and how this is unfolding around the world in terms of the financial structures and how that might affect us going forward. So the first thing I wanted to look at was BRICS. Now, BRICS, according to Wikipedia, is an intergovernmental organization comprising of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. And this group, which has now developed into a geopolitical bloc, has its governments meeting each year at a formal summit called the BRICS Summit. And they coordinate multilateral policies since 2009. And these bilateral relations amongst the BRICS are conducted based mainly on non-interference, equality, and mutual benefit. At the 15th BRICS Summit in 2023, the representatives were Lula da Silva, which is the president of Brazil, Xi Jinping, which is the People's Republic of China representative, the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and the Russian diplomat or Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov. So these were the main representatives for the 15th BRICS Summit, which was held in 2023. So I wanted to channel down some information about BRICS, and I hope that you find the information very enlightening and interesting. So I said to them, first of all, what is BRICS? And they said to me that BRICS is an alliance of financial and geographical regions who are wanting autonomy in order to trade with their own regional or traditional currency, as opposed to trading in the USD or the American dollar. So I said, so what will be required in order for these geographical regions to trade in their own currencies? And they said to me that new international payment systems are being devised and trialed to replace the current cross-border payment systems, namely SWIFT. I said, international payment systems are being devised to replace SWIFT. And I said, who is devising them? And will there be many of them? And they said to me that many new cross-border payment options are likely to be trialed by the QFS system, which is a practice platform before we move to the Q personal ID financial setup. They said to me that the new cross-border payment platforms are likely to be more focused on digital currency, which will be backed by assets like gold, silver, diamonds, oil, and they will be backed up and linked to the quantum virtual vault. So I've talked about the quantum virtual vault in a previous video, and I will link that in the description below. So then I asked them, Why do financial and geographical regions within the BRICS alliance, why do they want, autonomy? And they said to me that the new world is moving to decentralized systems in all areas of government, as we currently call it. And by devolving responsibility and decentralizing organizations and systems, you move towards sovereignty via governance, not government. They said BRICS is a way to bring financial sovereignty to each financial and geographical region, allowing for financial autonomy, not just for the region, but also for the people. They said to me that by creating a devolved and decentralized setup in each of the main locations, for example, north, south, east, and west, as determined by the Worldwide Military Peace Plan, then outside countries cannot intervene with a location's financial decision-making or restrict or stop finances through manipulations or sanctions. And so the BRICS setup acts as a protective measure from interference from outside countries or geographical locations. They said to me that this also has the impact of allowing distinct cultural regions and traditions to flourish without outside pressure to adhere to a uniform set of cultural rules. The people in each devolved or decentralized region will have autonomy over how their financial system works alongside their own specific cultural setup. They said that the Worldwide Military Peace Plan, however, will oversee that human rights objectives are not forfeited. And if any of these human rights objectives were forfeited, then this could lead to a military sanction in communications, internet, or banking, for example. But they did say that all the other members of the Worldwide Military Peace Plan would need to be in agreement for these types of sanctions to occur. They said currently, financial penalties or restrictions are being imposed via the SWIFT system, generally as a result of the USA setting the relevant bar for codes of conduct or practice, and that under BRICS, regional culture will dictate trends in spending, expansion, and investments without any recourse because of SWIFT system sanctions. I said to them, BRICS was founded in 2009, and has its strength and influence grown larger than originally intended or anticipated? And they said yes and no. They said the formation of BRICS has been a long-term plan for the White Hats to move towards decentralized, devolved financial practices in financial and geographical locations. They said its recent increases in members and applications to join are readily welcomed, as we are edging closer to a time where the financial systems are about to switch to a digital system overseen by the resources of the quantum virtual vault. The vault will be the vehicle by which the worldwide assets are fairly and evenly divided to all financial and geographical regions within the Worldwide Military Peace Plan protocols. So I asked them, does this mean that regions that are not within the Worldwide Military Peace Plan protocols will be unable to access the quantum virtual vault? And they said to me that at this moment in time, it is not anticipated that any region will fall outside of the quantum virtual vault. So I said to them, so BRICS is an alliance of geographical regions and financial regions which are moving away from trading using the petrodollar. And they said yes and no. They said the idea is for locations to be able to trade freely amongst themselves without the use of the petrodollar as its main frame of reference or exchange. So I asked them, what is the petrodollar? They said to me that the petrodollar is the term used for the cost of buying oil in line with the value of the dollar. So I said, so does this mean that countries can now trade with each other more fairly using their own national currency? And can they please explain that? And they said, in the past, countries usually converted their currency, their national currency, into dollars in order to buy goods. And this meant that the value of the goods was determined by how many dollars their national currency could buy on any given day. They said that many commodities in the past were sold or tied to the petrodollar, and so it limited freedom of choice unless goods were traded against the petrodollar. For example, oil, gold, and silver. So then I said to them, has Russia, who trades in rubles, and Iran, who trades in rial, the currency rial, have they integrated their payment systems to work with each other so that they can work with each other in rubles and rial? And they said yes. They said the new BRICS system will allow for geographical financial locations to trade with each other without the need to go through the SWIFT system, which currently ties things into the valuation of the dollar. So then I've been hearing that when people remove their trade away from buying the dollar and they trade with each other, as the example of Russia and Iran, where they're now trading with each other in rubles and rial, which is their national currencies, that this creates something called de-dollarization to the dollar in the USA. So I said to them, what does de-dollarization mean? And they said to me that de-dollarization means that a region's currency or a region's currency values won't be compared to the value of the dollar in the USA. And so effectively what this means is whilst people are trading with each other in their own local currencies, then the value of the dollar decreases. And this is called de-dollarization. So then I asked them, is a petrodollar different to a dollar? And they said a petrodollar is a unit of currency whose value is assessed dependent on its rate of exchange when buying oil, petrol, or gas. And that a dollar is a unit of currency which is able to be used to purchase any other item, irrespective of the price fluctuations of gas, oil, or petrol. So then I asked them, what will happen after and during de-dollarization? They said to me that during de-dollarization, it is likely that property and commodities and utilities in each region will become more affordable to that region's citizens. So I think what they're explaining is that while the dollar will be decreasing in value in the USA, because people are now using their own regional currencies to trade with each other, the effects on the regions that are trading with each other will be that commodities will be more affordable to the citizens in those regions. But in the USA, it will mean that the dollar is going through de-dollarization and losing its value. And I said, so does this mean in the future that the stock exchange will go? Because we know that companies put their stocks on the stock exchange. They said, no, the stock exchange will not go, but the value of currency worldwide will not be measured for strength against the dollar's value in any given moment. So I'm not an expert in the stock exchange, so I don't understand that entirely. But if you have any information about that you can send me, that would be very interesting. So then I said, so what will geographical currency be monitored against in terms of how much it's worth for trade? They said that methods of trading in the future will change, with geographical regions being able to trade fairly in their own regional currency, one for one. So I think that means that, for example, where we had Russia, who trades in rubles, and Iran, who trades in rial, you'll be able to say, you know, I want 10 rial for, you know, my jar of coffee, and Russia will be able to send you 10 rubles for that jar of coffee, because 10 rubles will be the same as 10 rial. Well, that is my understanding. If anyone knows of anything different, then please let me know. So I said to them, so how does this differ from what we currently have or do? Can they explain that to us? And they said that currently, currency values shift up or down against other currencies depending on the value of the dollar. But in future, local currency will not be valued in line with the value of the dollar. So this is how I think they'll be able to keep everything valued 1 to 1. $1 will equal €1. 1 rial will equal 1 ruble. Well, that's my understanding. So then I asked if there's an end to the petrodollar, and I don't know if there will be a total end to the petrodollar, but if there was an end to the petrodollar, how would that affect the USA? And they said to me that the end of the petrodollar will mean that worldwide valuations of currency with regard to oil and natural reserves will no longer be tied or dictated by the value set or fluctuations in the USA dollar. Prices for oil, gas, and natural resource will be set fairly between trading partners using a fair trade policy. And they said that this could involve a system where countries exchange goods. So for example, a country could exchange coffee for oil, like a barter system. I said, is de-dollarization part of the white hat Q consciousness ID financial system? And they said no. They said de-dollarization will be completed before we move to the Q consciousness ID financial system, because it is a prerequisite. And I said, why is it a prerequisite? And they said that the de-dollarization breaks the control of the USA over other economies, which will allow for financial sovereignty in each region. And they said that financial sovereignty of each geographical region of the worldwide military peace plan map is imperative before the Q consciousness ID can be implemented. And I said, so is de-dollarization part of the financial reset? And they said it is anticipated that a worldwide financial reset back to regional local currency will occur but it will occur before the full de-dollarization has occurred. So I said to them, so the financial reset worldwide is anticipated before full de-dollarization has occurred. And they said, yes. And I said, what year will that be? I gave them the option of 24 and 25, and they just gave me a dash for that. And when I said 26 and 27, 2026, 27, there was a tick for yes next to both of those. So it looks like de-dollarization is going to be an ongoing process, at least for the next 4 years. And that whilst that's ongoing, the financial reset is looking like it's due to occur in 2026 to 2027. So I said, what is required at this point before the worldwide financial reset can be enacted? And they said more layers, political, economic, military, and technological, need to be streamlined, devolved, and moved to governance to fit into the protocols for the worldwide military peace plan. And I said, when the worldwide financial reset happens, will it be one sort of like worldwide event with a public announcement? And they said it is intended that the worldwide financial reset will happen in stages with gradual de-dollarization and a move to decentralized governance, and that this is an ongoing strategy over many years. So then I said, as the dollar devalues because of the worldwide move to their return of local currencies, then does this mean that the USA will have a financial reset before the rest of the world? And they said that the UK is likely to be the first country or region to be seen to implement a new financial setup, which will comprise of a digital currency with digital wallets, a change in government structure, and devolution of governance. And this is currently anticipated to happen on or around 2026 to 27, and in the interim, many layers are being restructured in preparation. So the next thing I wanted to ask about was the SWIFT system. Now, most of us have heard of the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system is the current worldwide interbank financial telecom system, which allows for cross-border payments. So the way that they explain SWIFT is it's the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, and is the global messaging system used by the correspondent banking network and financial institutions to manage cross-border transactions. And I said, are we moving away from SWIFT because it has been able to enforce economic sanctions in the past? And they said, that's not the reason. It's because we're moving away from this idea of one centralized system or one region or one method of moving financial transactions. And so then I said, so how does SWIFT and SPFS and CPAM, how do they fit into the worldwide military peace plan? Now, SWIFT is the system I've already highlighted, which most of us already know. SPFS is the Russian cross-border payment system, which stands for the System for Transfer of Financial Messages, and is operated by the Bank of Russia. And CPAM is the Iranian cross-border payments system, which is operated by the Central Bank of Islamic Republic of Iran. They said to me that the Russian SPFS is the Russian equivalent of the SWIFT financial transfer system, and it was developed by the Central Bank of Russia, and that the system has been in successful development since 2014, when the United States government threatened to disconnect the Russian Federation from the SWIFT system, and that CPAM is the first national financial messaging infrastructure which handles major banking transactions for Iran, such as the rial, and it again says that it is supported by the latest technology, which eliminates the need for using SWIFT because of the concerns associated with the SWIFT system, i.e. that the SWIFT system has been able to impose sanctions to regions in the past. So I asked, how does SWIFT, SPFS, which is the Russian cross-border payment system, and CPAM, which is the Iranian cross-border payment system, how does that fit into the worldwide military peace plan? And they said to me that the satellite systems, which are set up by the worldwide military peace plan, will protect the integrity of these new cross-border financial frameworks. And I'm going to expand on these frameworks and how they're protected in a little while, but I'm just showing you at the moment how people are setting up their own cross-border payment systems away from SWIFT. So again, they're moving away from the control of the USA systems, as in the dollar and the SWIFT messaging, cross-border payments messaging service. And I asked them again, why are countries, wanting to move away from SWIFT? And they said that SWIFT is more money-based, whereas the newer systems are more based on digital currency, digital currency transactions. So then I asked them, so the SPFS, which is the Russian cross-border payment system, the system for transfer of financial messages, the SPFS, I said that is the Central Bank of Russia, and CPAM is the Central Bank of Iran. So what's going to happen to their cross-border systems? Are they going to go in the future? And they said to me that in the future, all central bank setups will move to a digital system of transferring via cross-border payments. They said to me that the SPFS and the CPAM act like the SWIFT system in respect that they move cash, but they said that the new systems will be set up to move digital currency only, and that over time, the cash system of transfers will be disbanded and old monetary transfer systems are likely to go. And I said, will the QFS system, is it intending to replace SWIFT? And they said, yes. I said, is it intending to replace SPFS, which is the Russian cross-border payments? And they said that it's not intending to replace that. And I said, is it intending to replace CPAM, which is the Iranian cross-border payment system? And they said it's not intending to replace that either, but it is intending, there is an intention, should I say, in the future that the SWIFT cross-border payment system is going to be replaced. We'll talk about that a bit later on. They're saying that eventually components of the QFS system will move to the new Q financial system, which will require a personal Q consciousness ID. And so many components of the current QFS setup are intended to be disbanded going forward, and that these components are just placeholders as the financial system moves to digital and asset-backed regional currencies. So, for example, these digital assets and regional currencies are going to be backed by gold, silver, oil, diamonds, for example. And then I said, so why are we moving away from this one centralized system like SWIFT? And they said SWIFT is designed to move money across borders regarding monies and cash via the USA system. And so what it seems to be saying is that in the future, because we're moving to a different type of asset-backed system, which will involve digital currency, that maybe this SWIFT system will either go or be repurposed. I said CPAM, which is the Iranian Rial cross-border payment system, and the SPFS, which is the Russian ruble cross-border payment system. I said it's been able to interact, they've been able to interact directly with each other before this cross-border payment system using SWIFT, and they said no. So before CPAM and SPFS were set up, they were not able to send payments to each other. They had to use the SWIFT system. But now that CPAM in Iran and SPFS in Russia have set up this cross-border payment system, they can now speak to each other and transfer currency to each other directly. And so I said, so what is changing, which will allow for Russia and Iran, for example, to directly move money on a cross-border payment system? And they said the future of cross-border payment systems outside of the SWIFT system will all be set up to transfer and deal in digital currency only. So it looks like any cross-border payment system that's currently in operation, whether that's CPAM, SPFS, SWIFT, if they're not set up to digital currency only at the moment, then it looks like this is the way it's going in the future. So I said to them, so does the SWIFT system send all transactions in order to control currency exchange rates against the dollar? And they said, not exactly. They said the SWIFT system is devised to only move money for locations that trade in dollars or use their currency in exchange for the value of dollars. They said the newer transfer systems will allow for transactions to go country to country and region to region without the need to cross through the USA. So I think what they mean by that is not that the transaction will necessarily cross through the USA, or it might do, but I think what they mean is that the newer systems don't need to have their valuations against the USA dollar as they pass through the cross-border system. So then I asked, so does the SWIFT system send all transactions through the USA in order to control currency exchange rates against the dollar? And they said not exactly, but the SWIFT system is devised to only move money for locations that trade in dollars and the USD dollars. And they said that the newer transfer systems will allow for transactions to go country to country or region to region without the need to cross through the USA. So I said, so has SWIFT been able to impose sanctions on cross-border payments in the past, and they said it had. And I said, how will the emergence of new platforms that are coming in the future, how will it affect sanctioning like this in the future? And they said that in the future, it is expected that multiple cross-border payment systems will emerge who will all fall under the canopy of the worldwide military peace plan. So any sanctions in the future will be made only after it is deemed that a breach of the protocols and procedures at the peace plan level have been breached, and only after all the members have voted. So while I was researching the BRICS, the countries involved with BRICS, I was also noticing that Vietnam, Turkey, Malaysia, amongst, and there might be others, they are now wanting to join BRICS also and have made applications. And so I said, does a country joining BRICS mean that they are essentially moving away from the dollar and the petrodollar? And they said yes. And I said, does this also mean that they're moving towards digital currency? And they said it's not necessarily linked, but in most cases, a move away from the dollar exchange mechanism will also allow for local currencies to also operate as a digital currency if they choose to. And they did say that digital currency will need to be fully adopted to fall under the worldwide military peace plan auspices. So then I said, why are people wanting to join BRICS now? Is it part of the worldwide military peace plan, to get everyone signed into protocols for accepted behaviors and actions? And they said to me that people are joining BRICS so that they can trade with other geographical and financial regions free of the dollar. And I said, is joining BRICS attached to joining or being allowed to join the worldwide military peace plan? And they said to me that to be signed into the protections of the worldwide military peace plan, then each location will need to show that devolution is ongoing. And that means devolution of policies of things like their government procedures. So that might include, for instance, devolved voting, and devolution of financial operations as well. And they said an example of this might be digital wallets, digital currency, and the eventual removal of central banks. So now it gets very interesting because they're saying that in the future, to be part of the worldwide military peace plan, then there will need to be the removal of central banks. But in the same narrative, they're also talking about how systems are all moving to digital currency. So now this is where it gets interesting. And I want to explain to you how that system is going to look in the future. So while I was researching all of this information, I came across a new platform called mBridge. So mBridge is a project which falls under the Bank of International Settlements, and it says that the project aims to explore a multi-central bank digital currency platform, CBDC, and it's where it wants to share among participating central banks and commercial banks to build a distributed ledger technology, a DLT, which will create instant cross-border payments and settlement. So this project mBridge is a collaboration between the Bank of International Settlements, the Bank of Thailand, the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates, the Digital Currency Institute of the People's Bank of China, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and the Saudi Central Bank, who are currently joining mBridge. And that they also said that there are more than 31 observing members of this mBridge project. Now, for those of you that follow me, you know that I saw a vision of Mohammed bin Salman in the middle of last summer, 2023, where I saw him, I think it was in the Arctic region, surrounded by leaders of what looked like the Middle East and protected by high security military personnel. And at that time, I said he was discussing something to do with the Q financial system or BRICS or something like that. And it looks like this is what he might have been discussing, his involvement in the mBridge project. So I'm now going to try and explain to you about mBridge. So going further down their document, they're saying that the project aims to tackle key inefficiencies in cross-border payments, which have been things like high costs, low speed, and operational complexities. And sometimes because of where people's countries are, their jurisdiction, they haven't been able to be involved maybe in a cross-border payment system. What they're saying is that this platform will be able to handle multi-CBDC arrangements that will be able to connect all these different jurisdictions in one single technical infrastructure. So it sounds like mBridge is going to be able to manage each location's individual digital currency on this one platform, because they're saying that it's a platform based on a new blockchain, which is called the mBridge Ledger. And it's built to support real-time, peer-to-peer, cross-border payments and foreign exchange transactions. Now, I will provide the full document below in the link so you can go through everything that I'm saying in more detail. But as of August 2024, there were already a lot of observing members of Project mBridge, including the Asian Investment Bank, the Philippines, Bank of Indonesia, Bank of France, Bank of Israel, Bank of Italy, Bank of Korea, Bank of Mauritius, Bahrain, Brazil, Chile, Central Bank of Egypt, Jordan, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Nepal, Norway, Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey, the European Central Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the Monetary Authority of Macau, the National Bank of Cambodia, the National Bank of Georgia, the National Bank of Kazakhstan, the New York Innovation Center, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the Reserve Bank of Australia, the Reserve Bank of India, and the South African Reserve Bank and World Bank. So this is very interesting that we already have a lot of people that are observing members of this project. So on the surface, this looks like a setup for CBDCs. which have been very controversial in the past because they run through central banks. And we're obviously trying to move away from central bank control in order to devolve financial transactions to the people. So I wanted to ask all around mBridge to find out how this is going to work and how it's going to devolve or be involved in devolution of governance to the people in terms of financial transactions. So my first question was, mBridge is a new platform to move digital currencies via cross-border payments, with many central banks observing this new platform. And I said, aren't we supposed to be moving away from central banks? And what they said to me was that the systems being set up will work with the Starlink and the Starshield centralized network. But essentially, transactions will be decentralized in the future so that the need for central banks will diminish. They said that devolved systems will speak with the centralized system in space. This goes back to what I've been explaining for a couple of years already. You have a centralized system up above, Starlink and the Worldwide Military Peace Plan, and each geographical location has to sign in to the protocols and regulations to be part of that centralized system. That centralized system at the Space Force level will operate a cybersecurity protection. Then as we come down to the people, the future is that we as individuals or communities will be able to speak to that centralized system directly based on what we want. And that the central banks, the layers in between, will be gone. And so I'm trying to find out how all these central banks who are currently observing this mBridge project, how that's all going to fit in to this plan, this centralized worldwide military peace plan and devolution to the people. So I said, in the future, mBridge, is it going to work without central banks? And they said, not immediately, but in the future, as the central banks are disbanded, then systems like mBridge will help to transfer digital funds direct on the devolved, decentralized application or wallet on a person's system or technology. And I said, so will this be one of the uses of the SpaceX's direct-to-cell technologies? And they said yes. So obviously my first concern was when I saw that mBridge is a project or an innovation around the Bank of International Settlements. Because in the past, when any reference has been made to central banks or the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central banks, then we've been led to believe that this is, a dark hat operation or a deep state operation. So my question was, is mBridge an innovation of the Bank of International Settlements? Did the Bank of International Settlements set up mBridge? And what they said to me was that the Bank of International Settlements, they're not actually the creators, they're more the overseers of how mBridge will be regulated and how it will be implemented going forward. So I said, who has devised mBridge? They said to me that mBridge is a tech innovation which has to the greater extent been overseen by military cybersecurity technicians during its development so that it can be effectively linked the worldwide military peace plan and Delta cybersecurity arm of the Space Force in each of the main regions as specified under the military plan, which we know to be North, South, East, and West. So I said to them, so if military Space Force are the overseers of the mBridge development, then mBridge will fall under the arm of Delta for the Q financial system. And they said yes. So if we look at this diagram, we can see at the top, we've got the worldwide Space Force. Each country has its own space setup or space agency. And below that is the layer of cybersecurity. To the left of this diagram, you can see we've got the QFS, which is currently set up to be run as a practice platform. And I've talked about this in previous videos where I've talked about Hedera and Quant. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that the Q financial system, which will be the final setup, is overseen by Delta Cybersecurity. It's overseen by the Worldwide Military Peace Plan. And we can now see that mBridge falls under that structure, and it will feed into the X.com banking app. So mBridge, if it brings through it all the different regions' digital currencies, so it'll be coming through the centralized platform. So remember what I've said in the past, CBDC stands for centralized banking, centralized in the sense that it will come from the Space Force, it will come from the Q financial system, and it is digital currency. It's a centralized banking digital currency. So mBridge will be the centralized banking, and it will be able to manage multiple digital currencies. And these will then go into the X.com banking app, and then the end user will have their app and be able to access whatever financial transactions they need to process. The Q Consciousness ID, which will allow you to open these apps and this technology in the future, is still in development, but it also falls on the side of this plan under the Worldwide Military Peace Plan. So everything to the left of this diagram, which falls under QFS, is all innovation that currently is not covered by military cybersecurity. And everything that falls on the right of this diagram is intended to be the future of the Q financial system and will be part of the Worldwide Military Peace Plan, and it will be protected by military cyber security.